Going live. Hi. So, are you good? So, I spent the day having a conversation with my universe, and it was a very intense day of standing in the ethereal plane and me just manifesting a lot of I just want my sunlight back. And I started this morning at around 5 o'clock, 5:30. I usually start my mornings around 4 or 5, and then I get, yeah, it's like 7 o'clock, and my daughter starts squawking. She starts squawking around sometimes 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's okay. Today, she decided to start squawking around 6 o'clock, so I got lucky.
Oh, you got lucky,
I
huh?
did, yes. So I was going to read to you a chapter that I wrote. This is back in 2015, and I don't know. Oh, no, no, I'm going to read you the whole chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters. And basically, there are elements of the identity. Like there's the identity, the stuff on the surface that you know you like and you love, but it might be a passing phase, or maybe you, like my knitting. My knitting is a great example of this. My knitting is I was 5 years old when I begged and cried at my mom to teach me how to knit. She did not know how to knit. She only knew how to crochet. So it was only like 5 years of me crying and throwing tantrums because she wouldn't teach me how to knit. How dare she? And then the internet happened, and it never, like, because the internet in 1995 didn't have YouTube. I didn't think to YouTube this stuff. And it wasn't until 2018, I think it was 2018, maybe 2017. I'm pretty sure it was 2018. It was during my healing. It was the stage of my healing where I said, everything I've ever wanted to do, I'm going to do it. I love that stage of healing. And knitting was one of those things. So I pulled out YouTube, and I went to the store and I started to learn how to do it. And it was fantastic because within like 3 weeks, I had it down. I was like, I'm knitting now. And I started off with washcloths because no one cares what washcloths look like. And if you mess them up, no one cares. And they're small. So I made like 30 washcloths. And then I went on to making massive scarves and blankets, which in the wintertime, I like am wrapped in dripping in knitted products, hippie. And that first year, it was like I had to make up for all the knitting I didn't do in my entire life. So I literally knitted for a year straight, which is actually one of my favorite stories. When I say I knitted for a year straight, first of all, I was unemployed due to my mental health at that time. So literally, all I did for a year was knit. I mean, I woke up at 6 a.m., grabbed my knitting, grabbed my coffee, I sat on my butt and I knitted. And I did not stop until bedtime, 11 o'clock at night. And I would have TV on, I would have cooking recipes, I would have documentaries, and I would just knit. I watched so much TV that year because I couldn't use my hands because they were preoccupied. And I did that for literally just shy, as in more than 365 days straight. It was like happiness. Like it was wonderful. And I still knit. I don't knit every day now, but if it's like my safe place. But my point of this story, this 3-minute story about knitting, the whole point of it was that the knitting it's me, it's part of me, but it's not deep, deep levels of identity. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is there are levels of identity. There's the surface identity levels, and then there's the core identities. Like I'm a cat lover. Can you tell? And I have had cats with me my entire life. So that's a deep seated level of love. Books are like right there with it. So the older a part of your loves or hobbies or interests are, the longer you've had them, the stronger they are. So the more you can identify and make connections. For instance, with knitting, I have no memories of 5, 6, 7 years old knitting. I only have from when I was 37 and on knitting. So that's not going to be a really strong, happy identity memory. But cats, he's trying to go out. Cats are like a every little nook and cranny. I swear, if scientists look at my skin under a microscope, I will have like little tea draw tetra bears in the shape of cats in my DNA. That's how deep seated my cat love is. And so it was really important that I remembered today what those were. And it was wonderful because I was feeling this cold, just ice like wrapped around my heart. And I spent the day just talking about dreams and trying to pick them apart with my partner. And I get down to this one moment with it all where I went, oh, I love adventure. That's my everything's an adventure. I feel like I always felt like as a child, especially, like I was sun kissed and just, well, moon kissed. I was dropped by the moon onto this earth and I went, whoa, what's this place? It's so green. And I just danced in the rain in the moonlight and ran through the trees. And like, I swear I could fly. Every time I ran, I felt like if I just ran fast enough, and I did a few times, I could take flight. I knew it. And that is and it's weird because when the abuse started and the trauma started, I lived these two very separate lives. And it's funny because the more I heal, the less I can remember about the trauma. It's beautiful, especially since havening. So now I have all these trauma memories that are fading, and all that's left are the happy memories, are the Elizabeth, your cat put the cord in his cat box. So he's got wires now in his poop box. Cats, you gotta love them. So he whenever he scratches, he like picks things up and he puts them in his box. We have found some interesting stuff in his cat box. So that all being said, it's there's parts of us that are deep into our core, and the more you remember those parts of you, the more you come alive. And it, when you're healing from trauma, all that gets iced over. So I'm at that point where I'm through the trauma. I've gone, okay, I've convinced myself that I'm safe, but now it's like resuscitation. That is exactly, and that's what I'm going to call it. It's the part of your healing where you have to resuscitate and revive the identity. And you're cold and you're kind of like, all right, and you're going through the lives, but it feels like you're a robot. You feel shallow and you feel iced over. And I got a hold of there were a couple pockets of memory in my childhood and in my healing where I got attached to, or not attached, but I felt my sunlight. And there's no other word for it. It's very much my sunlight. And the last time I felt it, oh my God, it was way too long ago. It was the last time I felt it was probably 3 years ago. It was 2021 last time I felt it, and I just have not felt it since. So I'm going, and that's when the shadow work began, and I went into it. I returned to the valley of shadow and death. There's just no other words for it. It was hell. And then I got out of it, and I'm going, okay. And I've been focusing on this goal with the garden, but it hasn't been just, I've been focusing on the goal with the garden. And I realized that goals are not dreams. They're not dreams. And I Googled a whole lot of what's the difference between a goal and a dream. And I don't know the psychology of dreams. I have to sit down, and I'm not talking about dreams at night. My cat is now ripping tape off of the pizza box. It's okay. It's fine. It hasn't even been a minute. Like, he is in a mood. He needs to go out. So this cat has ADHD. And when he's locked in a room for very long, he gets very ornery and naughty. And he's at the naughty stage where he's like, I'm going to rip this. And he does this all the time, everywhere. I'm going to rip. So he's a cat, Mr. Fuzzpants. So his name is Midnight, but Mr. Fuzzpants. So that all being said, I realized I need to thaw my heart, and the fastest way to do that for me is books. Books are my DNA. Books are my first love. When I was a child, I was allowed only the books that mentioned God. And I found Pilgrim's Progress, which is hilarious because I love classic literature. And this is very funny to me because classic literature is like, when I found out that the 200 great books list exists, I went, oh my God, it's my reading list. And I went through all of them. Well, most of them, as many of them as I could. I think I got 75% of the way through the great books list. Oh my God, that was such great education. I had so much fun with the great books. I need to go back to that and finish it off. That's on my bucket list now. I'm going to read all of the great books. Yeah. yeah, I got my bucket list back. And it was on my bucket list for a long time. Yeah, that started on my bucket list. And then it actually, because of the trauma, and that's just it. There was a lot of dreams that I had, a lot of to do things. Like I was planning on traveling the world, and then my trauma happened. I was planning on like literally becoming a travel agent, just like a flight attendant, just so I could travel the world. And that's what my aunt had done. My aunt is a a globe trotting hippie who teaches yoga in Israel. That is my aunt. So, and she was my idol. Like that is exactly. And then it just never happened for me because it never happened for me because I ended up being traumatized, and all my dreams were gone. And it became, when you survive, you don't think about dreams. So dreams are the luxuries of people who aren't in survival mode. And I did manage to keep a hold of my dreams for as long as I could. And honestly, my dream became, that's what it is. My dream was to get out of the freaking trauma. My dream was like, I'm going to break out of my prison. So I would spend so much of my youth fantasizing about what freedom was like. Oh my God, this is so sad, but it's really true. And it's what got me through it. I spent so much time fantasizing and dreaming. That is what this is. This is, I had one dream, and that was to be free, to get out of the trauma. And I had so many dreams that I used to fuel this passion. And the closer I got to freedom, mental freedom, health, like just and physical freedom, the more I got to that freedom, the more excited I got. Like I was finally achieving my dream. And I got to New York City. I got my freedom. I broke out of that nightmarish hellhole. And then I put my brain back together. I had that one massive setback last month. And that's the other thing is I haven't really talked about this much because the one trauma event last month kind of overshadows all of it. I actually resolved my mental illness like April 1st. And that's important. No, it was April 2nd. And I will tell you why that was so freaking important. Because April 2nd, 2015 was the day I was at my bottom low, and I went into the ER and was evaluated and went, whoa, you've got mental shit. We're putting you in therapy and putting you on meds. That is April 2nd of 2015. That was the start date of my low point, changing my life around. And on April 2nd this year, I completed my work. I was done. And I had 3 weeks of beautiful, peaceful, this is what freedom, this is what life without mental illness looks like. And I was happy and I was on the rise. And then I was raped. And everything went out the window. And I'm like, if only I could get back to where I was in April, even. I couldn't even do that. And I realized what had happened was I've achieved my goal. I've achieved all my dreams. Well, no, not anymore. Now I can pick up my childhood dreams that never occurred, like traveling the world. And, like one of my dreams was becoming a published author. I became a published author. So now I'm kind of like, oh no, I'm still writing. But the whole hype of, oh, it's my dream to be a published author, the dream's gone. But those are like, that's more of a goal. Like that's I'm going to pursue this dream. I'm talking about dreams of just the wild fantasy dreams, the dreams before they become solid goals. And I was reading more about it this afternoon that dreams are what fuels motivation. And if you can just revive your solid, cold heart, and it's not easy. And I like it takes a lot of mental work. And you have to really clear out a lot of your upstairs garbage. You have to clean all that up in order for it to work. So yeah, it's like this massive. So I realized that, and another part of my problem was I've been guarded, and in order to drop my guard down, I need to like open back up again. So I was gonna read this chapter. I want to read this chapter. Yeah. Oh wait. No, I'm not gonna read this chapter. I started off on this whole thing, but then I'm like, no, I will definitely be. This is going to be the introduction video because I do want to. I said a lot. I wasn't expecting to talk for 15 minutes. So instead of reading the chapter, I'm just gonna. I think I'm gonna read the book to you. I'm gonna read Dolor and Shadow to you. And I read this I read this in 2015 during a book reading club that I hosted and on my podcast. And this is a break from the mental illness. And this is part of the therapy. And I'm going to tell you why it's part of the therapy is because when you get into really the depths of healing, it becomes your life. It consumes you. And you forget to do the fun things. And I did this. I was like so driven to I want to fix me now that that's all I did for months. And my therapist one day finally said to me, "What do you do for fun?" And I went, "Psychology." And she goes, "No, what do you do for fun?" "Psychology." "Well, do you do anything?" I literally just listen to psych books all day long. I study YouTube videos on psychology. I just do psychology. I lived it, breathed it, drank it, slept it. Like it's all I did. And yeah, yeah, it became my life. And it is my life. But we are a sum of our parts. And part of healing, this part of healing is the part where you get to remember all of the sum of you. You get to remember all of you. And before trauma destroyed parts of me, I was going to travel the world, and I am now. And I was going to write books, and I was going to just go on adventures. I was reading books and I was writing books and I was singing and I was dancing and I was dreaming about Broadway. And when I got into heavy survival and then healing, I didn't have any mental energy for any of that. And now I do. Now it's back. So I today, the last 3 days have been a lot of mental turnaround for me. I've been withdrawn from the internet because I really needed to. I was noticing some major issues with my business, with the healing garden, and I noticed it going in this direction. And I just the more this is the beautiful thing about healing is basically healing is an alignment. It's four different parts of you aligning. It's your it's your identity aligning with your truth, and then it is your own energy and your frequency aligning with your behavior, and then it's taking this and aligning it with this so that you have this gorgeous frequency, this gorgeous chord all aligned. And when that happens, that's it. That's just the alignment and a balancing act. And when that happens, you you have the energy now to just enjoy life. And I finally have the mental space to just take in, oh, this is who I am. It's been a long time since I've been free to be this person. In fact, I've never, ever been free to be this person. So I have a new me now. And it's very reminiscent of pieces of the old me without any of the bad parts anymore. And I can definitely feel my sunlight back. It's coming back. And I know what to do. I was like, what did and it was I love this part of my day because I was like, I was going, okay, come on, come on. I know what sunlight is. What made up my sunlight? And I remembered I stepped back. I imagined that moment when I was the most filled with my sunlight. I was running through Central Park in Strawberry Hills, and then I was remembering when I was a child and it was a full moon outside and I would go out and I would dance. I treated myself like I was a chakra stone. So every time I did, really, I did. Now that I think about it, every time the moon came out, I would go soak in the moonlight, like, oh, it's moon tonight. I got to go soak in the rays and be a chakra stone. And I did. I used the moon every full moon to become a chakra stone, to like absorb my moon energy. And there's like a whole lot of psychics and astrologists out there listening to that going, oh, I know what that means. And I'm like, yeah, if you know, please tell me because I don't. I know that there's something about being connected to the moon and I don't quite know what it is. So I'm a chakra stone. And yeah, I felt me come back. I felt myself reviving today. And it's been a very productive day. But I noticed that the more I healed, the more I realized that, oh, the garden's way off. It's over here on this degree, and all the alignment is over here now. So I need to shift the garden over here. And I realized yesterday that my garden is actually made up of 3 different pillars. I have the soul, the manifestation side. I have, which is, I love that side. That's the ethereal plane. And then I have the muggle side of the, and I don't like the muggle side. That's the material plane. Oh, there's me coming back. I don't like the muggle side. That's where all the normal people are. And I don't do well with normal. So yeah, I have all the muggle side, which is that's where in real life people go to find me. And then from there, I have my meditation for beginners. And that's just very basic. Okay, we're going to go over a meditation. I'm going to be actually working on that group more and bringing that in. So I have my muggle side, and my down to earth, let's try and be normal side. I've got my ethereal on my ethereal plane side, and then I have the subconscious side, which is the healing garden. And that's where the mind is. So I have my mind and my subconscious work. I've got my normal muggle meditation work. And then I've got my let's talk about light work. Let's talk about witch. I don't like talking about witchcraft. I'm not a witch. I don't identify as a witch, not in the classic sense. That's There's a whole spirituality there that does not fit my frequency. So I'm not comfortable with it because it does not fit my frequency. I help witches. I have friends who are witches. I serve witches. I am actually not a witch in that sense because that's not my frequency. I'm an ethereal walker. I am very much an ethereal walker, and I'm a light worker. That is how I identify. I am a fae touched down from the Fey wild temporarily. And like I said, I feel like I was just kind of like moon kissed onto the earth when I was like a child, and I went, "Ooh, I'm a changeling. That's what I am. I'm a changeling." I'm so happy we had this conversation. I'm a changeling. So yeah, that's what it feels like, is that I don't belong here. But and yeah, when I'm off in my ethereal world, then and it's funny. That's exactly what it feels like. Is I've been through an identity crisis. That's what it is, and I'm just now at the tail end of this, and I'm going, all right, I'm finally got I'm thawing my heart. I'm getting my sunlight back. I'm going to go drink a glass of water because my throat's dry. And then tomorrow, I'm going to start reading my book, Dolor and Shadow, which is awesome because I know what went into this book. A lot went into this book. I will do an introduction on it tomorrow because my daughter needs me. And then so tomorrow I will do an introduction on the book, and then I will do an actual chapter reading. And the purpose of that is just to kind of tune me back into this version of me that needs to come back. And then honestly, afterwards, I'll probably talk a bit about it. Yeah, I'll probably do like 3 videos. So I'll do an introduction, and then I will do the chapter read. And then I will have a second or third video where I will elaborate on what material I was pulling from. This is Dolor and Shadow. If you want to meet me for tomorrow, this is Dolor and Shadow. This is called the Sage Cycle, Cycle Book 1. I pull sources from the same persons, the same people that Tolkien pulled from, and Game of Thrones. So this is kind of a sister book to, if you think of it that way, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and this are sister books because they're all 3 pulled from the exact same material, which is the Prose Edda from Snorri Sturluson, who because he's long past deceased now, who was a 13th century Icelandic monk who wrote everything there is to know about Norse mythology. He literally wrote the book on Norse mythology. He noticed at that time period that people, like there was Thor's Wood, and that's a forest that's in Iceland, and people didn't know who Thor was. People in Iceland were starting to ask, who's Thor anyway? Why is this called Thor's Wood? Or there would be like Odin's Avenue or Odin's Way. And people were like, who the hell is Odin? And Snorri Sturluson, this 13th century monk, was upset that this culture was being lost. So he wrote these 2 poetic Eddas. That's what they're called, the poetic Eddas. And these are ancient texts from Iceland that were done in the 1200s. And he wrote all of the mythologies out in Norse mythology, all of them. And so everything we have today about elves and dwarves and the Ragnarok, Thor, Loki, Odin, Hel, all of it Sigyn, Frey, Freya, all of it. 100% of it comes from Snorri Sturluson, this Icelandic monk from the 13th century. So, and it's all done in like, not Beowulf. Beowulf is Swedish, by the way, and is a little older than Snorri Sturluson. Snorri Sturluson is Icelandic, and he he did epic poetry. The prose edda is like an epic poem. So it's yeah. In fact, I will right here. This is from the Poetic Edda, 48th stanza. I actually have it in my book. How fare the gods, how fare the elves? All Jotunheim groans, the gods are at council. Loud roar the dwarves by the doors of stone, the masters of the rocks. Would you know yet more? And that is a soothsayer or the Sitkona who is predicting the poetic edda. She's basically an oracle or a seer, and the whole of Norse mythology goes like this. Odin wanted he had a pursuit of truth. He wanted nothing more than to see knowledge, so he sought out this very famous oracle, and she basically he went to Mimir's well. There's like a whole story behind what Mimir's well is, and I'm not going to get into it here. But in order to get information out of Mimir's well, you have to give something. So Odin used his eye and gave his eye to Mimir's well in exchange for information. And Mimir's well told him, if you want to know how you die, if you want to know how the world ends, go see this oracle. So he goes to this oracle in this cave, and she tells everything. And the whole thing is Odin asking her, how do we die? Tell me about the end of days. And she tells everything. And Odin goes over everything. He wants to know the past, the beginning, the present, and the future. And so the Prose Edda is actually this oracle telling all of it, the past, the present, and the future, the Ragnarok, who kills who. It's literally the book of the Revelation, but through Old Norse point of view and through the telling of the Ragnarok gods and the Old Norse gods. And yeah, it was extraordinary. It was absolutely extraordinary. So this is an alternative history. It is aligned with 995 CE during the Christianization of Norway, when Olaf Tryggvason, not Saint Olaf, that he's about 150 years after. Saint Olaf is 150 years after Olaf Tryggvason. Olaf Tryggvason was the first king of Norway, all of Norway. Prior to that, it was a bunch of petty kingdoms. So I take historical Norway and I merge it with the occurrences of the Ragnarok at the same time as they overlap. But this is pre-Ragnarok. This is basically them realizing that Ragnarok is coming and the signs are all there. Loki is currently locked up at the roots of Yggdrasil after he killed Balder, and Odin did some really horrible things to him. So Loki is currently chained to Yggdrasil. That's where that story's happening. While Olaf Tryggvason, the first king of Norway in 995 CE, starts Christianizing Norway and terrorizing everybody there. While that's happening, the elves, that's Kalan, and Rune are going through their war, and they're actually located in Sweden, where Beowulf takes place, in their cities Lorlenalen, say that 10 times fast, Lorlenalen, and Gunir. And their war is going on. So you have the elves and their war happening. You have the Christianization of Norway occurring. That's 1000% historically accurate. Like, I was writing letters to Wikipedia proving to them that some of the material was inaccurate, and I was handing them to documentation to prove. You have your Olafs confused. You're confusing Olaf Tryggvason with Saint Olaf, and according to this document, they are two different people. Fix this, please. Here's the broken link. So it's that level of Norwegian history. And then we have the Ragnarok with the Norse mythology itself occurring. So it's all three worlds like coming together and coexisting in this story. So I'm going to read the back of the book here, and then I'm going to wrap it up, and then I will talk to you tomorrow. So as the gods destroy the elven city in search of their lost Rui, Kalan, the queen heir, is taken to Elfheim, where her powers are suppressed and her memory erased by those desperate to hide her. Years later, Kalan inherits her father's war and vows revenge on the one man she believes responsible, Rune, king of Gunir. But when Rune comes to possess a deadly power of his own, A twist of fate puts Colin into the protection of the man she has sworn to kill. From Elfheim to Jotunheim, then lost in the world of men, the two enemies must form an unlikely alliance if they are to make their way home and escape the shadow that hunts them all. So that is the book blurb of Dolor and Shadow. Sage Cycle Book 1. And I do have Book 2 out, Fire and Lies. I don't think I have the copy. I think my oldest daughter has that. So I will be reading this, and I will be starting tomorrow. I've decided I'm going to do 2 videos. I'm going to start with just the basic reading, because apparently I just gave a whole introduction of this is what it is. This is awesome. And then the flip side of all that is I'm going to do a follow-up video to explain some things. Now, this is going to be weird. This is the weird part, and then I'll wrap it up. 5 more minutes, Lizzie, I promise. This is the weird part. It's the Healing Garden, and I'm reading a fantasy novel. However, if you're here to see the psychological depths, my alters actually wrote this book, not me. Bergen, who is one of my alters, and Kalan, who is one of my alters, they're not there anymore. They wrote the book. Kalan and actually Joanna wrote it, and then taking on the personification of Bergen and Kalan. So this is actually written by 2 of my personalities. So this is going to be interesting for me. The other thing is Colin goes through the stages of grief. And because of my psych knowledge, I poured everything. This was literally the book that I used to figure out psychology, because it was very important to me to have my fictional characters psychologically accurate. So what really kickstarted, I mean, I was already studying psychology, but I realized that some of my characters were behaving illogically for some of their psychological disorders. So I had to write up psychological profiling for all my fictional characters. And when I did that, it was extraordinary. And I gave Kalan a lot of my mental disorders. I gave Bergen was so much fun to give mental disorders to. So there is that aspect. And the beautiful thing about this is you see the grieving process with Kalan. I walk her through how to heal grief. It's beautiful. So that's how the Healing Garden is on that aspect. Now, if you're coming in from the manifestation side of the Healing Garden, so the magic system in this book, and I did not know it then. This is hilarious. This is actually something I realized in the last year. And I have never spoken these words aloud. It was a thought I had about a year ago, and I went, son of a bitch. So this is the first time I've actually speaking this out loud. My views on spirituality and the energy pool and how we pull power from within to manifest is the magic system. So, and this is where it gets really wonderful. So there's like, it's literally, it's astonishing when I started to go back over it, and I'm going, son of a bitch. My magic system is literally just how I view energy in this world and how my alters perceived it from their experience. So they wrote it down. So I'm actually reading this book for research to see, because I've never gone back, not since I've been integrated. So I'm actually going back to look at how well my psychology was spot on when I wrote it in 2006 to 2015. And also to cover the energy pool and to see how close my magic system is to what I'm actually seeing with my visions. And already I'm seeing a lot of parallels and similarities, right down to, if you just look at the emblem, even triadic healing, the triadad. I don't know. I only know the Old Norse word or the Old Irish word for it, triadad. So I don't know I don't remember what it's called in new. So I'm a linguist. I've studied language for over 20 years. And when I wrote this, I pulled from Old Norse. I was learning Old Norse and Old Irish, which is what Druid is. Druid is druid, but it's Old Irish for druid. And Seidr is energy in the Old Norse language. That's what they called energy, was Seidr. or magic. That's what they called it. Yeah, magic, save energy. And it's funny because that's actually what I referred to it in the book is save magic or save energy. Um, so there's a lot of. Let me see here. Trigve. Yeah, oh, Trionod. Yeah, Trionod. The three united. The Saith fused itself to the elements. So here's one paragraph, and then I'll let you go. Your mother's pendant, she said. No, Troinod. The three united. The Saith fused itself to the elements until it lost itself inside the earth, becoming a part of it, flowing with the waters, churning with the soils, and riding on the wind through the air. The Saith is still there, sleeping, waiting for us to remember. Oh yeah, I'm excited. So join me tomorrow. I'm going to be reading this. This is going to be like a daily thing that I do because I need to get back in touch with this part of my soul. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings. And may the kindest of words always find you. Thank you.